Cloud. All right. Um, but Clara, we will come back to that. So,
Okay.
I'm Andy Burnett, and I am both presenter and moderator for this session. Um, it's being recorded. I want to I want to preface this really. Let me pop up a screen by saying what I have been thinking about and what I would like us to think about is not really AI and is not really software, but it is about the economic implications of what AI as applied to software might mean for us as a field. And I have to say that some of the experiments which I have been doing and colleagues have been doing over the last 3, 4 months have been really quite jaw-dropping, and I am not sure what to do about them. But I wanted to explain a little bit of why I have been thinking about this, show some of the experiments that we have been building, and then see if we can think about what this might mean. And I'm going to try to temper my enthusiasm around this. It is likely to leak out anyway, because I have been involved in software for many decades, and this is appears to be quite an astonishing change that we're seeing. So let me give you a little bit of the backstory on this. Some of this is going to be a bit techy. By all means, ask questions as we go along. It's not essential that you understand what's going on the technology. It's more about the implications of this. But towards the end of last year, a company called Anthropic released a new AI tool, which was called Opus 4.5. We are now at Opus 4.61. But the reason that I mention this is it astonished people with its capabilities. It was, particularly when it came to software, it was head and shoulders above anything else at the time. And it was fortunate that when it came out, I was on holiday with my wife in the top corner box, as far as I'm concerned. Because it was over the Christmas break, I had enough time to start playing with it. And prior to this, I had been experimenting with other tools. And in fact, Cindy had been a very early adopter on AI. And we'd all been impressed with how it could write limericks and turn your LinkedIn post into an X post and all sorts of things. It was all very clever. But I was starting to see people talking about Opus and the fact that it was able to do things so much better than anything that we had used before. And so, out of curiosity, I asked it to try and build me the equivalent of what's known as Bitly. Now, you may have come across Bitly. It is a piece of software where you put in a web address and it gives you back a shorter version of it, which you can then use. It's very popular. People use it when marketing campaigns and things like that. But the problem was that Bitly did link tracking and it was inserting advertising and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we didn't want it for our company. And I was curious what Opus could do. And so I described what I wanted it to build. And then Cindy and I and the children went out to walk on the beach. And when I came back, it had built it and deployed it. It had built the equivalent of what is a major software product. There are things that Bitly can do that our version doesn't, but it doesn't do it because I didn't ask it to do that. And I was just astonished that it was able to do this and make it work. I had never seen anything like this. And at around about that time, I came across a video on YouTube where someone who was much more advanced in their thinking about AI said, you have to think about your company now as if you had 1,000 extra employees. He said, just imagine you woke up tomorrow, you had 1,000 extra employees. Now, first of all, I thought, gosh, that's going to be hard. How do I manage them? And that is a major problem in its own right. But in essence, they were saying, imagine you had this intellectual capability at your fingertips. What would that allow you to do? And as I say, initially I was rather shocked by this question, but as we were on holiday and I was wandering around, I was thinking, that is actually a really interesting provocation. What would I do? And I also saw a video from Sam Altman, who's a person you may have come across. He was one of the people who started OpenAI, which gave us ChatGPT. And Sam was at a presentation and he said, we are predicting that the cost of energy because of solar power and the cost of intelligence because of AI will effectively become zero. And it's obviously a very provocative statement, but I was thinking about that and I was thinking about the 1,000 extra employees. And I suddenly thought, the limiting factor here in the use of AI, having just had this tiny glimpse of what it was able to build, is now our assumptions and our imagination. Now, the reason that I was titling this particular workshop AI and Disposable Software was that the way my imagination was going was I was starting to think about if I had all of these extra intelligent employees, how might I use them when I'm running workshops, designing training courses, things like that? And I realized that over the years, we had built a lot of the software tools we needed, the big complex stuff. But there was a huge opportunity in what I was thinking of as one-off or almost throwaway software. And part of the reason that I was thinking about this was shortly after we came back from holiday, I was going to have to run an event at a university where there were about 20 participants. They were all from one department. They all knew each other. I didn't know any of them. And I thought, I would like to know these people when I walk in. I would like to be able to recognize them. I'd like to know their research interests. And I thought, I wonder if that's something that I could do via AI. And so all I did was I said to Opus 4.5, which you'll also have heard of described as Claude, I said, here is a list of email addresses of everyone at this university. I need you to do two things. I need you to write me a briefing document about each of them, but I'd also like you to produce a game for me. And the game is going to be like one of those card matching games. I want you to randomly show me someone's face, and I have to try and remember who it is. And you'll tell me how effective I am at doing that. And about 20 minutes later, I was playing my game. It had done, all I'd given it was the email addresses. It came back and told me everyone who'd found what their research interests were. It gave me a game that I could sit on the plane playing to say, I now know these people. And it was fascinating because when they walked into the room and I was able to just say, hi, Andy, how are you doing? And it was quite shocking to them. But this really started getting me thinking about disposable software, the little things that we typically don't have time to do, or it would be too expensive to do it. But that now that we have 1,000 extra employees and we can build these tools effectively for free, what possibilities does that open up for us? And I've now been doing with my colleagues a number of experiments for that, which I will show you in a moment. But let me pause at this point and just ask, What are your thoughts on this? What experiments have you done, if any? And it's fine if you haven't. Go on, Clara. Hmm.
Yeah, the first time that it was like a little shock to me that I was doing a facilitation, and I asked to do a brainstorming, and I saw people taking the telephone to ask GPT for ideas.
All right.
Okay, so I decided to come to make it on purpose. So now, when I'm facilitating a process, I ask everybody to go to ChatGPT and have at least 10 ideas. They have
Hmm.
these 10 ideas, they write them in post-its, we put it in a place, and then I say, now you are going to come with ideas that are not here.
Right.
You get rid of these that GPT can give you, and you start not from scratch, but
Yeah.
building of something that is new and is functioning for me very good.
Really interesting. Thank you. Francois?
Yes, I'm totally stunned by your experience because as a HR professor at the university, I used to create large case studies where I train my students, the master's degree,
Hmm.
to resolve those case studies.
Hmm.
And last semester, I asked the same questions to ChatGPT, the Pro version 5.4,
Hmm.
and I would say in approximately 1 hour, okay, it produced a pretty good report that in comparison, it took like 40 or 50 hours to my students to produce.
Yeah.
And I was completely blown away by its possibilities. Of course, it's not perfect. Of course, it's not very well done. It doesn't understand everything, and but it's pretty good for like the need. You see that
Yeah.
we now have. So yeah. So it looks a little bit like your own experience. AI can create in a very, very short period of time a quite good product.
So I think this is the bit. I think we have reached some sort of inflection point where it really is good enough. And we now
Mhm.
have to, the bit that I'm so interested in is if you now have virtual AI colleagues who are good enough, and my AI, so I use Claude for various technical reasons, but my AI costs me about $3 a day. And it is extremely rare that I use up all of my capability that day. And you think about it, you've got a system that is incredibly capable in many ways, and it costs you $3. And you go, what might we do with that? So let me show you because I wanted to start doing some experiments around. But in this idea, following on from the university where it built me the game, and I was thinking, I don't want to use it to build large, complex software. It still feels very risky. But disposable software, where if it didn't work, that's okay, because we could always go back to doing it with post-it notes, seemed like a good way of doing it. So I've got these three demos, and just by chance, they all became sort of little acronyms or initialisms of FMP. But I'll show you because I developed these ideas with Claude. So I'll show you the first one. And I'm going to invite you to try this out. I'll do two things here. If you have your phone to hand, try scanning this QR code. But if you don't have your phone and you want to try this on your computer, I put the code in the chat. But see if you can make it work on your phone, because what I'm trying to build here is little tools that we might use. And I'm going to hit go live. Okay, so I can see two of us have joined. There we go. Three of us have joined. Right. So I'll tell you about this idea. I was thinking, how might I quickly get people into different groups as an ice-breaking activity? So I'm going to activate this, and it should have popped up a little poll on your. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I've got right, I got two people on this. So I'm going to end my countdown early, and you'll see two things have happened. First of all, I've got the score there, but it should also, particularly if you were doing it on your phone, it should have changed the color of the screen on your phone. And the idea then, I was thinking about this because there's a feature in Uber when you're looking for your Uber driver, you can change the color of your screen and sort of hold it up. And I was thinking, I could do that in a session where I'd get people to say what they're thinking and then just hold up their phone, and people would then go and form into groups. And in fact, one of my colleagues who runs an MBA program or teaches on it has just been using this with some of his students, and it works really nicely. I'll end this session now. Now, the thing that I wanted to emphasize about this, let me come back to here, is from start to finish, that took me 40 minutes. I had the idea, I chatted with Claude, it wrote the software, I had my first demo in under an hour. And this, as you've just seen, it works with people anywhere in the world. And it actually, say, my colleague Ryan, when he was doing it, he had, I don't know, 30 or 40 students using it. If I never use it again, it doesn't matter. It cost me 10 cents to make it, and it's quite amusing. And you go, okay, that's fine. So then I had another idea, and I was saying to Claude, let's try building something else. Now, I coach a high school robotics team, and a while ago, we had a meeting with our team and some of the other local teams, and they're all teenagers. And it was great. It was a lot of fun, and they wanted to talk, and there were lots of questions being asked. And I thought, I'm losing track of who put their hand up. I'm not sure that I'm calling people in the right order. So I was talking with Claude, and I said, I want to create something called Raise Your Hand, where digitally you can say, I would like to speak. And we went back and forth a bit, and I will show you this. I will put the link in the window in a moment, but I'm just going to, ZMG, I'm just going to connect here. If you have your phone, try clicking this QR code, and I will also put the link in chat, just so you can try it. Okay, Cindy is right off the out of the gate. I got two participants, and what you'll see is that once you've logged in, there's a button that says raise your hand. Okay, got Francois and Clara. Okay, so this I'm showing you is the display screen. I have a separate screen as the facilitator, and I'm just going to click next speaker, and you imagine this projected in your meeting room. Cindy's name comes up. It says on her phone that it's time for her to speak. She can speak. When I've finished, I just say, okay, finish speaker, waiting for next one. And I just click next speaker and it brings up Francois, and so it goes. Now, this took me 30 minutes to get up and running because I had learned a bit more about how to do it. And again, this will run with dozens and dozens of people in your room. And I thought, actually, that looks quite fun. And again, it doesn't even cost $1 to actually produce this and run it, to be honest. We need to be thinking about what is missing in our facilitation and teaching toolkit. And then I'll show you one other thing, which is sort of a development of that initial university experience. Um, so, oh, Celine, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you just joined. Um, this is running on a platform called Firebase. It's written in JavaScript, and we built this with Claude. But to come back to this, I was intrigued by the way that Claude was able to write me these briefing documents about university faculty. And I thought, I wonder if I could generalize this. So there was an email that went out a few days ago to everyone who was attending this conference. And so I pulled out some of those email addresses, just a few of them, and I said to Claude, I want a system that will let me know my participants. Now, it went off and it built an interface for it. There's a little bit more going on in the background on this one. But for instance, all I did was I gave it Roger's email address, and this is what it produces for me. And it shows recent publications, key research areas, research interests, and in fact, yeah, Ken Gilhooly. Um, I I don't know Ken, but it seems like he's an interesting person. But the point about this is it did all of that work. And in fact, I put in all of the email addresses. So I had a list of about 180 people. About 80 of them were just sort of very general Gmail addresses. But the system, I did not program it for this. The system said, actually, with those email addresses, I can't do anything with them. I'll put those to one side. It then went off and built these enhanced profiles for everyone else. It even categorized them for me. Are they academics? Are they people who work in industry? Are they that? And it's just astonishing. And that it ran, I think, for about an hour to build all of that, but it took about 15 minutes to build this interface. So, what had started off as um, disposable software, just different ideas. My colleagues in our company said, well, that's all very well, but we can't remember all of these names. So then I said to Claude, look, it looks like what we thought were going to be throwaway items, actually, people want to use. We need a way of organizing it. So we then, Claude then built this. So we add all of these tools and you can star them. And if you're on your phone, you have your own starred list and there's a management interface and things like that. All of that, I have not written any of the code. But each of these, for instance, I would imagine maybe the Find My People app where you can put people into groups. You could imagine that last year maybe you had a subscription to a service for doing that, like Mentimeter, like these other things. There's no point now. I can write my own version just by describing what I want, and if I only use it once, absolutely fine. So, those are examples, but what I was then interested in was those are ideas I had come up with. What other categories might be interesting? So, Claude and I worked together and we identified 10 categories in which it might be interesting to have disposable software. Now, what I'm showing you here is a software tool that we have built over the last 7 or 8 years now. This was not built with AI, but I'm going to invite you, if you would like to, I'm going to put a link in here. Um, and if you click on that link, you can do it on your phone. It might be better to do it on your computer and then click sign in as guest. Although if you have a Google account, you can also just click sign in as Google. It will let you add new items to this page. So totally up to you. But I was interested in the sort of areas that one might be able to generate ideas in. And I think this is probably a pretty good collection of categories. But when you look at it, are there any that jump out at you and say, actually, I spend quite a lot of time doing X, whatever X might be? And does that, if we're thinking about categories for developing tools, what might we be missing?
Can I
Do,
ask something?
Clara, always.
Well, thank you. Working facilitating processes of innovation. I have found that empathy is not really the what gives me the insight that I need.
Hmm.
I came along with this book that was made by Procter and Gamble. It is
Hmm.
like very private, that has to do with consumers' insights,
Oh, yeah.
and they have 32 categories of how a shopper goes to a store and
Hmm.
what they can do with this. For a shopper, this is very good, but I try to do it for services. So I
Hmm.
started to take photos of people, how they are behaving. And I try to, the only AI that I know, ChatGPT, to with the photo to tell me in what category this person is. You see, of these 32 categories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so for instance, if he's mirroring, if he's
Yeah.
this kind of, and ChatGPT was not able to give me the answer. So how do you can connect a visual with an answer is something that I don't know in what category this could be, or if it could be another one, but for me would be fantastic, no? Because I think that the design thinking has not evolved as now we need in innovation. So trying to find new things to work with, that would be very useful for me, but I didn't know how to do it. No, so
Yeah. That is very interesting. It might be it might fit into an existing category, and in which case let's capture it as an idea. But let me just ask Francois and Ceylon, um, do you see anything missing in terms of categories? Thinking about your work, if you were looking for stepping through processes that you do with students or clients.
Uh, I'm thinking out loud, eh?
Hmm.
Uh, so far, what I observed is that the kind of humor that people have and are sensitive to has an impact on the whole process because
Mm.
uh, I think that when people are too serious or they are reluctant to engage in a discussion where there's some funny things being
Yeah.
said, sometimes they just fall out, of the
Yeah.
group and they just disappear and we lose them completely. So I think I don't know how to phrase it or how to organize that, but I think maybe we could try to take that phenomenon into consideration. So is it a category? or I don't know. But
I I could see it would be. I'm going to write down just for a moment climate. How do we build it, Clara?
mm,
Yeah, building of what Francois is saying, now that I'm trying to understand neuroscience, there are two systems, system one and system
Hmm.
two. System one is automatic and system two is more putting yourself. So what I see here is really understanding if the people that you are working with are in system one or in system two. So if they
Yeah.
are in system one, you are losing them because they are ruminating. No, but if you can shift them to system two, they get along with what you are doing. So maybe in this category, it will also come in what system is people at that moment. I don't know
Uh,
if this is possible, but I
well,
think
let's capture this as in thinking processes. Am I in system one, system two? Because there may be several different ways, and I wanted to capture Celine's input, which if I could put into class continuity, if as in how do we link together from one class to another, which I actually think is a really interesting challenge as well. How do you keep people engaged or thoughtful? So thank you for that. Let me show you though what else we'd got here. I had taken these 10 categories and obviously I have been building tools on this. Was everyone able to get into this website? I say that only because then you can scroll through this page. Clara, did you manage?
I barely can see it.
Oh,
What are all the disposable tools we might build?
let's see.
Thank you. That is
You're
better. Thank you.
okay, and you can log into this site if you want with that link that I put in. Let me just put this.
Where is the link?
I will put it in here again. So it's in the chat window. If you want to, you can log into it. Okay.
Let me take a photo and maybe I can link now.
Hmm.
Andy,
Oh,
I was able to get in. It's working.
You were lovely.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The reason that I put this in here is I worked with Claude to think about what sort of tools, and again, this is back to the idea of disposable software, so it's okay if they're only ever used once. What sort of tools we might want to create. And we were trying to focus on tools that we could actually use AI both to build, but also to do some of the work for us as well. And I quite liked these, but you'll see, sort of, I asked it to come up with a couple for each of these categories. And I could certainly see using, for instance, I love this one about the assumption wall, get people. Now, I work very much in the academic and scientific research space, but you could see it working perhaps in other sectors as well, to be able to identify who is it, say, for instance, over here, what is it that participant A believes to be true, and then be able to partner that someone up with someone who either doesn't list this or believes something which the AI says, actually, I think that's a good opposite idea. And what I'm loving about these sorts of ideas is you imagine you're running a session, you've got 2 or 3 hours. We normally don't have the capacity to be able to go and interview each of our participants, find out what they're really thinking, plot their attitudes in a sort of multi-dimensional space. And therefore, a lot of what we do still relies on chance. I think with this sort of cost of software development tending towards almost nothing, and the ability to build these tools so quickly, we can now do a lot better than chance. And I find that really exciting. And if I just scroll down, the this one here I liked as well, the confident descent. Um, it it could help us identify where people feel diametrically opposed on whether something is correct or not. And it might surface people who might otherwise just be quiet about it. So there are so many possibilities. And what I'm thinking of doing now is to take each of these ones, maybe tweak them a little bit, and start building them because we are now in a situation where we can actually do these experiments um, almost for nothing, which I think is incredible. So I'm
Yes.
conscious time is ticking along here, and obviously this was mainly my presentation. What are your thoughts? You are welcome, by the way, to add to these categories and ideas. But I'm interested whether this idea of cheap disposable software might have relevance in your work.
I'm thinking, Andy, that there is a category also in measuring success.
Hmm.
So how can you know that what
Yeah.
you're doing is working? No.
Yeah.
So
Let me capture that. And success.
I feel very sorry that with this fantastic work, I'm putting things to it, but I think that I'm so excited with this that I'm thinking in many other ways to go, no? But I think it is fantastic. Thank you for sharing it.
You are
Yeah,
welcome. I'm astonished by what's possible. Hmm.
yeah.
Andy, forgive me if I missed. Oh, go ahead, Francois. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no, Celine, you can go. I talk already. I'll talk
Oh,
later. Who's the
thank
last
you.
one?
So Andy, are you looking for like collaboration opportunities? The reason I'm asking is I'm super interested in this space. I teach at UB and I teach a lot of different classes, and I'm thinking like of a million different ways I could use this. So tell me a little bit about like your end goal and how we can, what you're looking for and how we can support you.
That's a really interesting question. Because Selena, I don't know if you know, but I'm just down the road from you. But the yeah, what are we doing? We're building it really for ourselves, for our own company. But I wanted to share this with the community to be able to say, is this just of interest to us, or are there others? I think I would love it if we could both try out some of these tools because the tools might be interesting, but really get to what are the gaps? What is it when you're teaching and you think, I wish there were a tool that did X, but even if it was only a single use, but you go, that would be really useful because certainly our experience over the last few months has been single use often turns out to be something where you go, oh, actually, I could use that in a number of different cases. So I would be delighted to try this out. Let me just uh, there you go. Um, I would be,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah, if you have classes you want to try this in. The other thing I wanted to say is the software that we built is sort of running on our tech stack. Now, we could, and we do with some of our tools, make them more generally available. But I asked Claude um, to think about the tools that we had built together and to write the instructions that you would give to an AI to let other people build the tools on their tech stack. So work out what the assumptions are, and first of all, then ask people, well, do you use Firebase? Do you use Superbase? Do you use whatever it is, so that their AI could then build something which had similar features but was adapted to your environment? And I actually think this is a fascinating problem because it's probably not the case in the near future that I am going to give you my software. What I'm actually going to do is give you the instructions for how to get your AI to write it for you. And that is such a weird idea. I mean, I've been in the software industry for decades. And you go, that is not how we create software. But clearly it is now. Because it's also the case that Claude is at least as good a programmer as I am in most situations, and probably better. Um, and if it knows how to give the right instructions to itself, then we're in a really interesting situation. But, I could hand you my grandmother's recipe in effect and say, you make it. Um, and that's the way it's going to go. I'm conscious of time. Francois, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I have something, please. Yeah,
Go on then,
I
Claire.
think so. I see that everything has to do with language in what you show us. No,
Yes.
I'm working. Well, first I work in Latin America, but also I work with 3 universities in China.
Hmm.
And the English in China is like an 8 years old person.
Hmm.
Do you think that this could work in not English speaking countries?
Oh, unquestionably. Unquestionably. From the model's point of view, it doesn't care what language you're speaking in. It is astonishing. I use one of my AIs to help me learn Italian. It is fantastic at it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Um, we are coming up to time. I know there will be other sessions to jump off to, so I am going to wrap this up. You all have my email address. If you have interesting experiments you would like to try, just give me a shout. I would be very happy to experiment.